we gave you buy lows last pod. Now we're going to talk about some sell highs. When you buy, you got to sell, right? That's how, well, anyway, if you buy and you want to sell, this is what you got to do. So when we say sell high, these are guys that we want to not necessarily get off our roster, but we think their value might be declining. And we think that their values right now may not be there at season's ends for a, a bevy of reasons. So Nate, since you're back, why don't you kick it off for us and tell us who your first sell high is?
All right. Well, a throwback to The Mummy, featuring Brendan Fraser. I'm going to Egypt with Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Currently wide receiver 6 on Keep Trade Cut. So, hey, I'm talking about one of the best wide receivers. I'm telling you to sell. That might raise you some eyebrows, but I do have some statistics to back me up here. Okay. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously great wide receiver, finished last year pretty high, as he usually does. He was the wide receiver 3 last year, so quite productive. But even with being the wide receiver 3, remember last year was a bad year for wide receivers. They all of a sudden got the injury bug like the running backs usually do. So we had a really down wide receiver year overall across the board last year. So while I'm not trying to knock Amon-Ra St. Brown for his wide receiver 3 finish, it was a little bit easier to finish as wide receiver 3 last year than it usually is. Just to put that into account, he had scored 316 points last year, and if he had done that in 2023, he would have been wide receiver 4. So, it's not quite as good. So last year's regression from 2023, because Amon-Ra St. Brown was really, really good in 2023. That was kind of like his big year. His target share went down from 30.2% to 27.3%. His targets per game went down from 10.3 to 8.4, just about 2 targets per game. His yards per game went down from 94.7 to 74.3, about 20 yards per game. And his points per game went from 20.7 points per game to 18.6. So about 2 points per game. So we did see some regression from Amon-Ra St. Brown, a little bit because of Jameson Williams having that breakout year, crossing the 1,000-yard threshold. And Jameson Williams continues to get hyped this offseason as continuing to improve. I think he takes another step forward, not surpassing Amon-Ra St. Brown as the wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions, but continuing to make it a closer battle between those two of those guys. Remember, Jameson Williams, as good as he was last year, like I said, he did score, have over 1,000 yards. Jameson Williams only had 58 receptions. So there's still some room to grow for him. And then let's not forget, Ben Johnson also left, who's considered one of the best offensive coordinators we've recently had. And I'm less worried about that for individual players as I am for Jared Goff. Because Jared Goff has kind of been a quarterback who has been very offensive coordinator dependent. He was good with Sean McVay, but wasn't very, he's kind of hit or miss. He's kind of a system quarterback, I would almost say. So with Ben Johnson leaving, what does that look like for Jared Goff? Can he still do the same? And we know he's been really, really good for the last 2 years. Is that his ceiling? Is he going to be as good as this year? So I do love me some Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I think if you get the opportunity to move off of him for someone really good, could be a nice opportunity to go ahead and do it now rather than later, because I don't think he's going to necessarily hit the same highs that he's hit the last 2 years. Some of the trades that I pulled, courtesy of Dynasty Daddy for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amon-Ra and a second-round pick for Jamar Chase. I love that.
Give me Jamar Chase.
Give me Jamar Chase. I want Jamar Chase everywhere I can get him. If you have to do Amon-Ra St. Brown in a first for Jamar Chase, would you do that, Mike?
It's going to sit in my inbox a little bit because I'm going to be thinking about it.
Yeah. You're going to be like, hey, can I get a second back? Can I get a third back at least? Can I get some fab on top or something like that? You want something back in addition. We'll look at it. Well, another one I got here, Amon-Ra St. Brown for JSN and Chuba Hubbard, who I talked about in the last podcast. Oh, come on. That's a pretty quick accept for me. Let's not forget JSN was the wide receiver 9 last year.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was listening to that wrong. I thought you said Amon-Ra and JSN for Chuba Hubbard. Yes.
No.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. Then yes, I'm going to do that.
For JSN and Chuba Hubbard.
This is an ascending asset and a potential running back 1. Yeah. I'll do that.
Yep. And then here we go. I saw a couple of these, so I know it is possible. Straight up from Malik Neighbors, I would rather have Malik Neighbors than Amon-Ra St. Brown. You get a little bit younger. You get a guy who I think has a higher ceiling moving forward. And I also saw a third trade where it was actually Amon-Ra St. Brown and a second for Malik Neighbors. I would still be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you have one that you would not do on here?
I do. I have one I would not do on here. I saw this on here, and I just want to make sure I tell people, like, hey, we're not just selling Amon-Ra St. Brown for anything around here. Someone sold Amon-Ra St. Brown for Jameson Williams and Cam Scatterbo. Please do not do that.
No. I mean, that's got to be a big Scatterbo truther, right?
Yeah. And someone who thinks that JMO is going to be the new wide receiver 1 for the team, I guess.
I will say this. You're saying he's very coordinator dependent, scheme dependent. The Lions' new offensive coordinator is John Morton, who looks like he celebrates January 6th as a national holiday. But he was most recently the passing game coordinator for the Denver Broncos in 23 and 24, senior offensive assistant for the Detroit Lions. And so, yeah, he's been around. He was also the New Orleans Saints passing game coordinator and offensive assistant in 2006. So he did work with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. So, he's got some chops in the NFL here. He was the offensive coordinator for the Jets in 2017. From all I can see, that's the only
offensive the Josh McCown year.
It's the only offensive coordinator position he's had until now. So we shall see. All right. Now, my player here he's a sell high because I think anything you sell him for is a sell high. All right. Maybe I'm just taking some time to doo-doo on a player, but look, I got to tell you, you got to get rid of Anthony Richardson. He's quarterback 27 right now, which I guess is kind of a good spot for him. We don't even know if he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts. He got hurt. I believe he either dislocated or fractured a finger in his hand. I don't remember exactly what it was. My bad. But at this point, I want an excuse to get him off my roster. Don't forget, even 0 is value. He's played in 16 of a possible 34 games in his 2 years in the league. He's a career 50.6% completion percentage and a career touchdown to interception ratio of 11-13. But I will say this for Anthony Richardson, okay? When he plays, however, he does put up some fantasy points. In his 11 games last year, he did hit 16 fantasy points per game, which is just half a point per game lower than what Geno Smith did. But you could have paid less for Russell Wilson, who had 16.2 fantasy points per game last year. And Geno Smith, maybe you would have paid less at that time, who did have 16.5. But his best ability is availability, and he does not have it. So this might be one where you're making some moves, but you're going to pay up a little bit to move up. Anthony Richardson, a 26 second and a 26 third for Dak.
Absolutely.
And then here's one somebody just wants to move up. Anthony Richardson and a 26 second for a 26 first.
Yeah, probably. Maybe I don't make the move right now because I feel like I probably can make the move a little bit later too if I want it. And maybe I can get some more if Richardson does anything at all. But also you take the risk because if Richardson just continues to be not available and not good, then you might not even be able to make this trade. So,
all right. And last one, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, and a 25-205 for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, trading the Colts quarterback room in a second for Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yep. Try to throw Riley Leonard in there too while you're at it.
Why not?
All right, so Nate
and Sam Ellinger too. Is he still there?
I don't care. He might be. I don't know. Do I have the Colts up? No, I have the Lions depth chart up. I can let you know in just a second. Indianapolis Colts, and they have Jason Bean. Yeah, he's their camp QB. So, Nate, would you like to talk to me about apparently your least favorite running back from this class?
Yeah, I've gotten really down on Kaleb Johnson, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I see that.
Currently RB18 on Keep Trade Cut, and that's why, Mike. That's why, because he's the RB18 on Keep Trade Cut. I just think he's a little bit too risky, especially as a rookie. He's going to be, I think, a high-risk, high-reward player on a weekly basis between a snap share with Jaylen Warren, who is there this year. He's going to be free agent next year, so I think Kaleb Johnson has a bit more clear path to opportunities and more volume next year. But Jaylen Warren's going to get his this year. And also, he's I'm not a huge fan of the Steelers offense this year. Okay. I don't think a lot of people are, to be fair. But Aaron Rodgers is not good for the run game. Jets run game last year struggled. Breece Hall's breakaway percentage, which is the yards you get from runs of 15 yards or more, dropped 35% last year. Rodgers plays a lot of the shotgun. He makes a lot of audibles. He changes the offense around. I know it's Arthur Smith's offense, but Rodgers does not usually support an explosive running game. Even Braylon Allen, who we like, only had one run last year at 15 yards or more on 92 attempts. So it was not explosive last year for the Jets. And not walking into a great situation either. Jaylen Warren's breakaway percentage last year dropped 61%, from 36.2% to 14.1%, or as you could look at it, 12 runs of 15 yards or more down to 4 runs of 15 yards or more. And Najee Harris has remained a pedestrian 24.5%, but Arthur Smith's offense also has not actually been that great as of late.
Really?
Arthur Smith's running game has actually underachieved the last couple of years. Despite being ranked 11th in rushing attempts last year, the Steelers were 25th in yards per carry. And if you want to blame Najee Harris for that, then in 2023, when Arthur Smith was with the Falcons still and had a rookie Bijan Robinson, they were 9th in attempts, but were 17th in yards per carry. So a lot of people like to think of Arthur Smith as like a run game guru. That's because he had Derrick Henry when he was in the Tennessee Titans. So I don't think Arthur Smith's offense actually is as good as it maybe sometimes gets credit for in the run game, even though it really frustrates us as fantasy football players. Also, Mike, you sometimes, unless you have a really transcendent running back, you're usually drafting the offensive line rather than the running back.
Yeah.
And the Steelers' offensive line, I'm worried about them. PFF ranked them 21 in the league going into this year. That seemed a little optimistic because Fantasy Points has them ranked the 29th offensive line. Either way, it's not looking very great for that offensive line, which I'm sure Aaron Rodgers is super excited about. They got a lot of second-year starters on that line, a third-year starter, and then their center has been around for a little bit, but a lot of young guys on the offensive line, a lot of unproven players. So I'm worried about that offense. I'm worried about the run game. I think Kaleb Johnson is a little overvalued right now. And if I was looking to move off of him, I would be looking to move him for Xavier Worthy, for Jameson Williams, for Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Or Kaleb Johnson in a second-round pick for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. I mean, Xavier Worthy and Jameson Williams, I don't want to say they concern me. It's a little more inconsistent than I'd like them to be at times. But Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, I'm down for that, especially if you are a contending team.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, because they're most likely going to outproduce Kaleb Johnson this year. They don't have the, the sharing of the backfield like Kaleb Johnson does. So, but we like to share with you guys. That's why I want to talk to you real quick about Fantrax. And I want to tell you that Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. By the way, someone did say that MFL is more customizable, and what I can tell you is this: they suck. Anyway, you can create or join a fantasy football commissioner league, invite your friends, and dominate your draft this season. Go deep with the ultimate keeper in dynasty leagues. Create a simple redraft league, or even a customizable best ball league with up to 2,000 teams. Nate wants to be in that. Fantrax's free NFL fantasy football league manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the industry. And if you're coming from another service, Fantrax can easily import any of your current leagues, players, and even customize if needed. If you ever had a trade go wrong or made a mistake in dropping a player, great news. Fantrax Commissioner tools allow you to undo any move with one simple click. Fantrax is among the most trusted name in fantasy sports since 2008. It's not just the NFL, baseball, basketball, hockey, college basketball, college football, golf, soccer, and NASCAR. If there's anything lacking in your current fantasy league manager, Fantrax likely has it. Fantasy sports does not sleep, and neither does Fantrax, with seasons running 365 days a year. There is a reason why fantasy players who try Fantrax make it the permanent home for all their fantasy leagues. Go ahead and sign up today at fantrax.com/Dynasty Rewind. Nate, we're back. And I'm going to tell you about another player that I'm selling high on, and that is Los Angeles Rams running back Kyren Williams. He's currently running back 9 on Keep Trade Cut.
My man.
You
selling Kyren Williams. I've been preaching it for 3 years, whether or not it was good advice or not.
It's time. And despite the fact that he has back-to-back running back 7 finishes, I could see Kyren falling off a bit from years past. In 2023, 21.3 fantasy points per game, and in 2024, he had 17.0 fantasy points per game, 8 fumbles between those 2 years, by the way. And I could see other running backs moving in to make Kyren slide down. Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Chase Brown, Alvin Kamara, who's just outside the top 10 last year, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, and Jonathan Taylor. These are guys that could all come up and knock Kyren Williams down. The Rams are getting older. They got Stafford, Devontae Adams. So while they should be good this year, Kyren Williams was supposed to be a free agent after the season, but then they signed him to a contract extension after I filled this out. And Over the Cap didn't have that. But thank you, Spotrac or Spotrac, however it's pronounced. It is 3 years, 33 million, I believe. 3 years, 33 million. So
yeah, it's essentially, I looked at the details, it's basically like a 2-year deal with a team option for the 3rd year.
Right. But still,
there's like 23 million guaranteed. So
I don't anticipate Matthew Stafford being around. So what are you going to do? Turn over to like some Stetson Bennett?
Might not even be around this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a hurt back right now. Anyway, what does it cost to move on from Kyren Williams? You could do Kyren Williams, and this is a league that has not had their draft yet, and a 27-second for the 101 in this year's draft. So Kyren Williams, the 27-second for Ashton Genty, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. I'd much rather have Genty, and I don't mind moving the second.
Yeah. Kyren Williams for a 27 first and a 27 second. So a first and a second. I will say this, if I'm trading away a player like Kyren Williams, I'd like something more immediate than that.
I agree, especially at this point in the season. You don't want to just trade a competitive player for just picks.
Right. And I put this one on here just for you, Nate. Kyren Williams for Chris Olave, Demario Douglas, and a 26 second.
Oh, man. See, I don't actually love this trade, to be honest, because I'm not a big Chris Olave fan.
Really?
No, I'm not. I don't mind this trade, though. I think you're getting decent value out of it if you have running back depth and you just need some wide receiver depth. But also, since I'm not a big fan of Chris Olave, I don't feel like you're getting a single, like, really good piece here. But I know people do like Chris Olave more than me. So those who are fans of Chris Olave would feel differently and like this trade probably.
I actually don't like this trade. I think the value's there, but with Olave's injuries and, Tyler Shuck likely being the starting quarterback there in New Orleans, I would like more an asset that I can rely on a little bit more than a wide receiver for the Saints right now. Hey, in a month or two, this could look like a steal. But for right now, I would look for a different receiver personally. Nate, you broke my heart with this one and also surprised me, but who do you got?
Yeah, I know. I figured it would be a surprise that coming from myself, the big Ravens fan, that I have Zay Flowers, wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, on here as a sell. Currently, keep trade cuts, wide receiver 27.
Well, I like Zay Flowers. Remember, Lamar Jackson can't throw, I've been told.
Last year's MVP, as voted by every single outlet except for the NFL itself, apparently.
Yeah.
AP voters, I guess, screw them. Otherwise, Lamar Jackson was the consensus MVP. I'm just going to continue to say that he was the MVP, 3-time MVP. Anyway, Zay Flowers finished as the wide receiver 25 last year, but I'm worried about his week-to-week consistency. I love having him on my team in the NFL, but I actually don't have a lot of Zay Flowers on my fantasy teams because even though he's finished as the wide receiver 25, there's only 3 games last year, Mike, with 20-plus points, and he had 10 games under 12 points. And that's not including week 18, where he only played a couple snaps. So if I did include that, that would be 11 out of 18 games where he had less than 12 points. So there's some decent highs, but there's a lot of low lows with Zay Flowers. And Lamar and the Ravens spread the ball around a lot. They got Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely out there. They're not worried. They're not scared to throw it to the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. They just signed DeAndre Hopkins, who, I don't think is going to, eat into a ton of Zay Flowers targets, but is definitely a pretty good wide receiver 3 out there for them this year, as long as he's healthy. And also Rashad Bateman just signed an offseason extension this year. And I like Rashad Bateman a lot. I think he's a little underrated. Finished as the wide receiver 40 last year, but Rashad Bateman had the same number of top 12 finishes as Zay Flowers with 3. So interesting for sure. Yeah. Also with Zay Flowers, 27% of his receptions came behind the line of scrimmage. I do think a little bit of his touches do have to be manufactured. I do think he's getting better. I think he's going to continue to improve a little bit this year, but I think his ceiling is kind of like a low end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I think that's just kind of the situation he's in. I don't think he necessarily has the talent to be too much better than that. And like I said, the situation kind of spreads the ball around where I think he's just probably going to be like a wide receiver 30 this year, somewhere around 25 maybe again. And that's fine. I think that's fine. But I think if you're spending more than that, then you're going to be disappointed. Over the final 8 weeks of the season, I think when Rashad Bateman got a little bit more into the offense, he only had one game with over 100 yards, and he only had 3 games with over 5 receptions or more. So the volume did kind of go away at the end of the season, so something to keep in mind as well. So players, I would move Zay Flowers for Jameson Williams. I'm apparently high on Jameson Williams going into this year.
I'll keep Zay Flowers personally.
I think it's close. But I think JMO might offer some more upside than Zay Flowers. A late first, if you somehow haven't drafted, this goes back to what you said, Mike. I don't want to trade players away for picks at this point of the season. So if you're trading Zay Flowers for a 2026 first round pick, I do not want to do that right now.
By the way, will you say if you somehow haven't drafted yet? We have a league that we have not drafted yet in.
We do. Well, we need a last player for it.
I thought that got filled.
Who did it? I'll have to check.
I'll look while you're.
I think Josiah found somebody, right?
I'll check while you.
There. And then my last trade here: Zay Flowers in the second round pick for Rome Odunze.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. And it looks like. No, I lied to you. We still need one more person.
I think he found somebody, but they're not in the league yet, so I can't.
Well, they need to hurry up because football starts soon. So get on that. All right, so Nate's moving on from Zay Flowers, and I'm going to do something I rarely do, and that's I'm going to move on from a tight end, and a tight end that I like. That is Detroit Lions tight end Sam LaPorta. Sounds like this episode we're just off the Lions offense.
Except for I'm buying Jameson Williams at the same time.
Yeah, that is true. He's tight end 3 on Keep Trade Cut, player 56 overall. Now in 2024, he was tight end 8. Mike, why are you moving on from tight end 8? Let me tell you. 60 receptions, 726 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's good. 16 games, 10.9 fantasy points per game. For contrast, Zach Ertz was tight end 7. 66 receptions, 654 yards, 7 touchdowns in 17 games. That's 10.4 fantasy points per game. So that production is close. You were not paying Sam LaPorta prices for Zach Ertz last year. Okay. He was tight end 1 in 2023 when he had 86 receptions for 889 yards and 10 touchdowns in 17 games. That's 14.1 fantasy points per game. We saw the dip from year 1 to year 2. Can it be worse with Ben Johnson gone in year 3? My goal here is to maximize value. Okay. You have to move on sometimes from your best assets to make your team better. Okay. I just don't see Sam LaPorta being tight end 3 this year. Is it possible? Yes. I just don't think it happens. Okay. What does it cost to move on, or what can you get back for Sam LaPorta? Sam LaPorta and a 26th third for Kyren Williams and Jake Ferguson. For reference, also, Jake Ferguson had 10.4 fantasy points per game in 2023, and he was tight end 9 in that year. Had some issues last year. I do expect to see more of 2023.
Dak was out last year.
Yeah, that too. That's the main issue. I do expect to see more 2023 Jake Ferguson in 2024. But what do you think about that one?
I'm okay-ish with that one. If it's tight end premium, I'm not sure if I'm doing that just because I like Sam LaPorta a lot, and not a huge fan of Kyren Williams, as you know. We just talked about selling Kyren Williams, so I'm kind of like, on here. But if it's LaPorta in a third for 2 players you can put in your lineup, I'm not upset with that at all, especially if you need the running back.
Yeah, to me,
I'd rather have Kyren Williams than not have a running back. So
to me, this is a team that needs a starting running back. They want to compete, and they're okay with taking the slight downgrade going from LaPorta. Well, the downgrade, we'll just say downgrade. It might not be slight, going from LaPorta to Ferguson.
Yeah.
LaPorta and a 26 second for CMC and Zach Ertz. This one kind of baffled me a little bit.
This is a risky one.
I mean, look, the reality of the situation is this trade could really pan out, or it could go really bad.
I think you should be able to get a better tight end than Ertz, and I don't mean that because Ertz isn't going to be good. Ertz is just really old.
I'd like someone younger.
Yeah.
If I'm moving Sam LaPorta?
If
Yeah.
I'm making this move, I want someone younger than Ertz. Unless I'm sitting with LaPorta and Brock Bowers on my team, and I'm just like, hey, I just need another tight end too. But yeah, this all depends on CMC hitting or not. So because of the risk with CMC, I'd want a little bit more.
Yeah. And last one, Sam LaPorta for Evan Ingram, a 26 first and a 28 first.
Yeah, I'd probably be good with this. I'd be good with this.
Yeah.
Getting 2 first plus Evan Ingram for LaPorta. I think Ingram's going to be good with the Broncos this year. They're going to put him in that Joker role that Sean Payton keeps talking about. Ingram's also, I think, just turned 30, so he's still probably got another 2 or 3 years. It's not like he's aging out anytime soon. So
yeah, for sure. So that's all we got for you on that for this little extra pod that we're sprinkling in the week for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a good time doing yard work, listening to it, or whatever it is that you're doing. Don't forget, check out dynastyrewind.com for articles and rankings. You could also get some merch on there. The link is in there. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get some bonus podcasts, which Nate and I are going to go record now. Till next time, everybody. For Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.